We're bringing in NewsNation special correspondent and host of Reality Check, of course, Ross Coulthart tonight. Ross, it's always so wonderful to see you, and there is so much to comb through already. More than 162 files released. We see videos, photos, sound transcripts as well. What is standing out to you?
Good evening, Natasha. Look, for me, I think the most exciting stuff is actually things that have come before. It's the NASA imagery, the acknowledgement by the Department of War, which is new, that these objects, these blue dots seen over the lunar surface on multiple missions, including Apollo 12 and Apollo 17, they are potentially, according to the Department of War, in a new finding, physical objects. I think that's an astonishing admission by the Pentagon. It implies that something physical, I suspect intelligently controlled, based on the conversations I've had with people who know a lot more about these objects, something physical was hovering over the Apollo lunar missions. I've been told by people who knew Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo 14 lunar module pilot, very well, that Edgar confessed privately that he'd seen these blue objects with his own eyes. So we can rule them out as lens flares or artifacts of the camera. That's not going to explain what we see here. There is definitely something anomalous that was seen on the lunar surface. And then I guess some of the other imagery which shows dots, orbs, moving in anomalous ways across the screen. There's one in particular, I can't remember the exact video number, but it shows the object maneuvering, doing left-hand turns instantaneously. Those are movements that conform to what we call the five observables, measures that we use to assess something as anomalous. I do think, though, the best is yet to come, Natasha. We're told this is only the beginning.
Yeah, any idea when the next drop will be and what we can expect next?
I think it might come as early as the end of this week. We might see another drop this coming Friday, as happened last week. I'm certainly told that there are the 46 videos that have been requested by Representative Anna Paulina and the members of the UAP caucus. They've been demanding access to videos that the Pentagon's been sitting on for some time that have been described to us by multiple sources and multiple witnesses. All of the sources tell us that in some cases these are extraordinarily clear images, 4K quality imagery, for example, of an object moving very fast underwater, far beyond known human technology capabilities. And also there are space shuttle images. I'm told that some of the imagery includes images taken from some of the STS space shuttle missions that feature objects that have never been properly explained, which I have to say, Natasha, really does beg the question. If NASA did its inquiry into UAPs, why did it limit in its terms of reference to terrestrial or aerial phenomena on planet Earth? Why did it constrain its terms of reference to stop, effectively, an investigation of probably the more interesting anomalies, objects that have been filmed or photographed in lunar orbit or in orbit around the Earth?
Yes, such good questions. And we know one of the files featured sound from the Gemini mission back in 1965. Astronauts report seeing a mysterious object to mission control. Let's listen to that quickly together.
Bogey at 10 o'clock high.
This is Houston. Say again, 7?
So we have a bogey at 10 o'clock high.
Is that the booster or is that an actual sighting?
What?
Say again, 7?
So we have several, looks like the three up there, actual sighting. It looks like hundreds of little particles going by to the west out about 3 to 4 miles.
Ross, what are your thoughts after hearing this? Is this significant?
I think that the sightings by astronauts of lunar anomalies are the tip of an iceberg of sightings by astronauts going back decades. It's quite clear that there have been images seen by astronauts over many, many decades. Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo 14 astronaut I mentioned earlier, he admitted that he was told not to talk about what he saw on the surface of the moon. He told this privately to friends of his who've spoken to me. He was told it was treason. It was a breach of his security oath to talk about what he saw. I'm not suggesting that NASA specifically is involved in a cover-up, but somebody is, Natasha. Somebody is holding back.
NewsNation special correspondent, host of Reality Check, Ross Coulthart, thank you so much, as always.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.